Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the press conference of the People's Labour Party for the month of May. We are happy for the turnout in terms of the attendance by the various media houses. We also welcome those who are joining us via electronic means, whether on YouTube, Facebook, etc. I would just ask, as usual, that we observe the housekeeping rules in terms of your cellular phones, that they may be placed on silent, and if you have to make a call, that you discreetly leave the room and conduct your call and then return. And also that you try as much as possible, for those who are here in person, not to walk in front of the cameras that are running in the room. Now, this afternoon's press conference is coming at a time of continued hardship for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. It seems as if every single press conference that we have had for the last several months, that has been the opening in terms of what people are going through. The hardship in the country is palpable. You can feel it. You can cut it with a knife, and it is not getting any better. And what we have noted is that a lot of the issues that we confront as a country can be parked right at the feet of the administration currently ruling the government at this time. We are seeing in St. Kitts and Nevis a situation where people are having difficulty in terms of making ends meet, difficulty in terms of having a job, holding on to a job. We are seeing cutbacks, especially in the tourism sector. If you go down at Port Zante, I'm sure you would recognize a number of the stores are closed because of slow activity. And in these cases, those persons who are employed in those facilities are now facing the possible likelihood of being let off, facing redundancy, etc. Similar stories occur across other sectors, whether it is construction or otherwise. We also have issues relative to the growing concerns based on the performance of the government as a whole and the performance of specific ministers as a whole. Just last week, for those of us who are paying attention, we would have recognized that the farmers in St. Kitts are crying out for lack of attention, for losses, especially when it comes to their tomato harvest and so forth, which basically is indicative of a problem when it comes to forecasting and planning and advice that might be given to farmers in terms of what crops to plant, etc. And these are all unfortunate circumstances. At the last press conference, we would have had something like 11 murders in the country. As of today, that number is now 14. And we say what we are accustomed to saying each and every time, that human life is precious. The death of one person is too much. Hearing faulty and cynical rhetoric coming from government and their advisors in terms of what type of death rate is tolerable, 2 per month, it is really unfortunate, and it is also callous. But then if you're to follow that rhetoric, by us having now 14 murders, we would have surpassed the quota that the advisor said they would be happy with, which is 2 per month, which would have, exactly. So we are long past that point. We are also coming on the heels of the IMF report that has now been issued by the IMF following the usual annual Article 4 consultation. And that too is cause for concern. However, I will not delve too much into that because our leader, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, is certain to address that in quite able fashion when he comes to the podium. At the same time, we are looking at the level of services in terms of the government, services in terms of education, the continued issues that, as they relate to the absence of a proper educational facility for the Joshua Obadiah Williams School. We are also looking at issues relative to Keon in terms of that school system, so that too is a cause for concern. And we are also looking at medical services because the stories continue to create an avalanche, more or less, every single week where you're hearing about some additional cause, some woe that is happening, especially at the Joseph and France General Hospital. And what is coming out is not pleasant. Apart from the issues of perceived incompetence, people being placed in management positions which they are not suited to, there are also issues of accessing other services like laboratory services, issues relative to the maintenance of the facility. We are also looking at other matters such as the behavior and the rhetoric coming from the management of the hospital. I'm sure some of you have seen disturbing posts within the last 24 to 48 hours from a senior management person at the hospital, basically saying, look, don't disturb me on my vacation. And perhaps maybe I need to leave the country so that you will get the message, don't bother me. Well, that, I think, it really has sunk to a new low, because healthcare is a requirement and it is a right of every citizen in this country. And whether you figure you're on vacation or not, health is not a subject or a service that shuts down at 4 p.m. or when you go on vacation or on the weekend or on a public holiday. It is something that cross-cuts our entire society when at some point or other, some one of us may get ill and have to access the services of the hospital. Most people in this country are not wealthy that they could afford to hire an air ambulance to take them overseas and use up their insurance that will enable them to get the top-notch health care they can elsewhere. They have to rely on the services that are available here, whether that service comes from any of the 11 health centers on St. Kitts and the 6 on Nevis, or the other tertiary facilities such as our hospitals, Pogson, Mary Charles, JNF. It is what we have. And at the end of the day, whether you have plans to build a smart hospital or not, you have to take care of what you have now. Because if you cannot manage what you have now, which is low-tech, we fail to see how you can manage a high-tech, smart hospital. Of course, everything coming out of the new administration is a smart something or the other. But then that is something that is left to debate later on. As we convene this press conference, we are also doing it at a time when a number of our citizens are suffering loss of loved ones due to their passing, and the People's Labour Party wishes to use this opportunity to extend sincere condolences to the grieving families. And in particular, I draw reference to the passing of Mrs. Rita Isaac, the mother of Sonia Carr, Rawlinson Isaac, and the other Isaac children. And at the same time, Mr. Myron Bernier from Old Road, who has also passed, Mr. Alston Rouse from Sandy Point, and also Miss Ursula Fraser from Keon. And there is also one other individual I would like to extend condolences on the knowledge of her passing, and that is Miss Mercil Rogers of Sandy Point, who later migrated to the United States and would have passed about a week or two ago as a result of complications suffered in a fire at her home. And she's being buried, I think it's on Saturday in New York. So we extend sincere condolences to all of these families as they continue to grieve. Now, before I take up too much of the leaders' thunder, I just wanted to remind us at the same time that we are just 48 hours away from the start, the official start of the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season. And all of the predictions that we have seen indicate from NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, the National Hurricane Center, etc., that it is expected to be an above normal hurricane season, with above normal the number of major storms that are expected. So once again, the People's Labour Party advises all citizens to listen to the advisories, obey the advisories coming from NEMA and the Met Office, and do everything possible to prepare for the season by preparing your house and following all the tips and advice, etc., that would normally follow at the start and during the whole process of the hurricane season. And while we are doing that, we ask God for his tender mercies to spare us from any severe threats and damage, etc., as a result of these hurricanes that will be passing our way. It is a fact of our life. We live in Hurricane Alley, and we can't get away from that, but at least we have advanced globally so far in terms of technology and weather prediction that it gives us time to prepare as much as we can. At this time, it is my pleasure to invite to the podium Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, leader of the People's Labour Party, who will make some opening statements, following which we will open the floor for questions from the audience, from the media here, and connected to us overseas, and we will endeavor to do our best to respond as best we can. Could we give Dr. Harris a warm welcome?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair Lady. And of course, you were doing so well, you could have continued. I want to bring warm greetings to all who are here. We are delighted to have you. Some of you have made it a regular practice to come and to show solidarity and support. That is much welcome. And some of you are quite new. And we are especially delighted that some persons have thought it necessary and interesting enough to come here. I am minded to recognize the large cross-section of our citizens, residents, and well-wishers of our great party, the People's Labour Party, and indeed of our country at large, who are logged on and social media, and who, of course, during the course of the day would also pay attention to what is being said here. The truth is, as Madam Chair Lady told us, and the country knows, the situation in our country at this time is quite gloomy. You can feel it, and many people are expressing it. And in spite of that gloom that pervades the atmosphere in St. Kitts and Nevis, I want to say to our people, keep hope alive. Indeed, the People's Labour Party is very optimistic that the future under a People's Labour Party, all-inclusive government will be a very bright one for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And as we continue our efforts at a party to build this, the fastest growing party in our country and region, bigger, better, stronger, we want to do it together with you. We appreciate all of the persons who have to date volunteered their services to keep the People's Labour Party focused on its mission to unite all persons, irrespective of their class, their creed, their gender, or political affiliation, to advance the growth and development of our beloved St. Kitts and Nevis. Our party, of course, is people-centric. We have grown so rapidly in the national standing because we are a party for all the people. In our view, a prosperous St. Kitts and Nevis will come when all our people here are endeavoring and all are achieving. Our country needs a spiritual and socio-economic awakening in which the working class in this, the land of our birth, is being elevated. We need more high achievers, more high-quality technicians and tradesmen. Our farmers and fisher folks must be fully supported in the efforts to deliver on our agenda of food security. And much of the protests, much of the negatives that are being spoken out there with regard to the agricultural sector tell us that we are not appreciating that at the heart of the success of agriculture are our farmers and fishers. The farmers and fishers are at the heart of the success. And unless they are successful, there will be no success in our efforts at agricultural development. We, of course, expect under a PLP-led government that all the economic growth drivers, whatever they are, tourism, agriculture, whatever they are, construction, you name them, all of them must be strengthened. The PLP government will improve the lot of all the people. In other words, we are not just thinking of some. We want everybody to experience a better quality of life, a life of dignity. And of course, they can feel and express their happiness as we continue, and they participate in the agenda of nation building. We have consciously as a party built out our party ensuring that everyone can find a place in the PLP. We do welcome all to help us improve the lives of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And where they are vulnerable and indigent people, we will design social safety nets to ensure that no one is left behind, because the agenda is prosperity for all. Our party goes into its convention on the 13th and 15th of June 2024, strengthened by its fieldwork and mobilization efforts to date in all 8 constituencies. We are inspired by the broad representation of persons on our newly reconstituted and energized constituency executive committees. And I want to welcome with us today Chairman Marlon Brown, constituency number 3. Could we give him a hand of welcome? We have Azure Milk Jones, representing constituency number 2. And of course, Elmar Martinez from number 7 should be on his way. And we're expecting Kevin Mills for number 6. We want to thank all others, like Mr. Donnelly Saunders, who continue to serve. I want to especially single out one of the units of the party, that is our women's arm, for its effective leadership and the heightened activities in 2024, including its recent successful Appreciation Day event, Mother's Day Appreciation event that was recently held, and for the program it has taken up intending to help victims of homicides in our country. As we get closer to the convention date, more information will be provided. However, by popular demand, next Wednesday night we will hold another town hall meeting in Sandy Point at the community center. And on Saturday the 8th June, starting at 5:30 a.m., we will commence our health walk. We will start at the Bellevue's bus stop and end on the Bourier Strip adjacent to Faith's Bakery. So the PLP is on the move. And from all accounts, we are going to be victorious. And we will work hard for you, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We will deliver the most successful era of national transformation and development in our nation's history. It grieves my heart to see where we are at this moment in time, when we should have been, as it were, hurriedly moving along in a real meaningful way out of the challenges of COVID-19 that devastated the economy and all economies of the world. However, we are well aware that the divided and incompetent Jew government has failed the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Our economy is in shambles. St. Kitts and Nevis seems like an accursed nation adrift. There's a fierce urgency to rescue our country and put it back to work again for the good people of St. Kitts and Nevis. For all their empty talk, the Jew administration has not delivered a better quality of life for our people. And in the view of many, it is time now to take back our country. And the People's Labour Party is ready to work with all our people, regardless of their party affiliation, to rebuild our country and to put a record high number of people back to work again. We did that before. 2018, 2019, the largest number of contributors on record at the Social Security happened under our leadership. So we did it before. We are now better able to do it again on your behalf. Our people should have enough money to take care of themselves. Indeed, that is one of the reasons why people go to work. To get money, to get the wherewithal, to take care of yourselves and your family. There is therefore an urgent need to create increasing opportunities, especially for small businesses in our country. The self-employed persons, be they hairdressers, and we have a lovely one here with us, barbers, and those who provide a variety of services across the hospitality, tourism, transportation subsectors of the economy. As a party, we are deeply concerned about the hardships now being experienced by too many people. I know that they did not vote for Jew labor to suffer this way. The financial struggle in St. Kitts and Nevis is real hard, and it is real. It is the source of much stress in too many homes and conflicts at the wider societal level. The popular partner hand, for example, is suffering like never before under Jew labor, as persons find it difficult to pay up on time, and the holders of cash end up using monies held in trust for others on rotation. Many times you see on social media the threats being hurled at the delinquents, which have caused police to take notice. Too many business people in our country are struggling to survive, and indeed too many of us. We can empathize because we live that struggle every day. For sure, there is no one group. It's almost everybody bawling how bad things are in this country. Whether you are a government employee in the top of the civil service or your police officers, fire workers, people are tired of being burdened with debt, while our incompetent ministers and their advisors look after themselves, traveling too frequently, and most importantly, at the end of the travel, they have nothing to show for it, except we know that for every day they spend out of our country, they get an extra $1,000 per day, referred to as per diem, which they take unto themselves, while the majority of persons in our country are sucking the proverbial salt. That is unconscionable. And this is a betrayal. It is a travesty and injustice on the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. These are the times. These are hard times, and Jew and his ministers clearly have no conscience, no empathy. How else would you explain that they are there, seemingly fattening their nests every day, without anything to show for it, without even having performed properly for a good year? They took 36% increase in their basic salary, and on top of that, they increased many other allowances while offering government workers a meager, some say ridiculous, 8% increase. And for some government workers, they didn't even realize 8% because 3% was being deducted at source, leaving them with a mere top-up of about 4.7% adjustment in their pay. 8, they said they will take out 3% for some program. You have no control, a statutory deduction. And there is where they left our people. And you wonder, how do they expect our people to live? Do they have a conscience? Do they not feel what people are feeling? Do they not hear them on Freedom Radio? Do they not see their Facebook posts and understand that people are made miserable? People are hurting, and it's all because of their incompetence. Ask the taxi operators, for example, how they are doing. Some will tell you they spend many days attempting to deal with mental stress because they are unable from their trade to find money to buy gas or even replace tires, and worse yet, to make their insurance payments. They tell us that business has been reduced to a mere trickle. They too are struggling. The presidents of the bus associations, not bar, and their members with families to feed have complained repeatedly that this divided Jew administration has made their lives worse. For nigh 2 years, this incompetent July administration keeps on lying to our people, keeps on promising to do, but never delivers on their promises. Broken promises, broken government. The reality for our bus operators is one of broken promises by an incompetent and arrogant government. So you ask Webster, who leads the bus administration. You would have heard him this week and perhaps last week speaking about the betrayal on Freedom Radio. Yes, as a party, for all the people, the People's Labour Party is very concerned about our bus and taxi operators. In fact, they are still at the heartbeat of travel in between and through communities, and we need to ensure that they can live a satisfactory life, a good life, a decent life, so that they continue to provide vital services to our people. Yes, life is too hard, and we agree with those who say it should not have been this way. You contrast what the ordinary people are feeling with the lavish living of ministers. You see how they are arrogantly wasting the taxpayers' monies. You know because your ears are on the ground and you see it for themselves. Bogus schemes and deals, under the table and above the table. $6 million given out to their friends, supposedly to assist with water distribution. In his own budget address, the Prime Minister tells us that 421 water tanks not accounted for. 421 out of 1,000. 6 million of taxpayers' dollars, we were told, was spent there. So who is holding the other 421 to give full accounting for 1,000 water tanks? Who? And you listen to the words on the street, they tell you that there's a black market now. A black market. If you want a water tank, ask for a certain man. The man is well known, and the man has connection to the powers that be. Something is wrong. We could never understand how the government embarked upon the private property of the late national hero Robert Bratcher, squandered $14 million, and after 2 years, no museum to show. Where has the people's money gone? Would you believe that that very government that trespassed on private property did not get clearance from the building board before embarking upon whatever games they were playing at the Bratcher's property? Would you believe? The law says that you can't undertake anything significant alteration on property without the permission of the building board. They never once submitted before they started the building designs for approval. The government says it is concerned about good governance, but breaking its own laws. No time now for you. They are changing their numbers on you. They are simply not answering you because they don't want to hear your pain anymore. They are not concerned about your worries. One minister told a constituent, "You got a lot of problem." He did not see himself as the problem solver. The problem now are hers and hers alone to deal with. So while they have no time for you, tell them, catch a plane, go to Europe, catch a plane, 5 of them gone to Antigua, and they have on time for that. And China and Taiwan and wherever else they have gone around the wide world. It's as if travel going out of style. And they're trying the most expensive way. First-class tickets financed by you, the taxpayers in our country, who are carrying the burden of a heavy VAT, carrying the burden of business license, when you could hardly make back, some of you, your business license in a day in this your country. Consumption tax, duties, corporation taxes, social service levies. It is us who are paying them and providing the resources for these arrogant ministers to travel around, enjoying themselves. Sometimes they go to the meeting just for the opening ceremony, I am told, and then they are lost somewhere doing what we didn't send them to do. That is what we have. And they are selfish. Our farmers and fisher folks are giving up. Nothing seems to be working for them. Yet every time there is some talk about the failures of the government, especially in agriculture, the response is another photo op. If you say nothing is happening, let me find a farmer who will accommodate me and take a photo and put it out on social media. Those things do not solve the problems. And for all the talk about the program for 2025, farmers just recently were on radio complaining that they lost some 7,000 pounds of tomatoes through incompetence of the ministry and they are yet to have a proper audience. This government, according to the words of many, is the worst government we have had in living memory. And we, the people, must ensure that we vote them out. We have heard every day almost about the challenges in the health sector. Patients are scared of the mismanagement at our hospital. Doctors, too, are scared for their patients. And instead of dealing with these problems that exist, as if in some fanciful land in Dubai or elsewhere, the Prime Minister said, we will build a new hospital. And for maybe the third time, wasted taxpayers' money, clearing the same site for a brand new hospital. Thank God the hospital is so smart in not coming out of the ground to have nothing to do with them. The hospital has now outsmarted them in not coming out. Understand? Because their focus really should be dealing with the problem now at JNF, improving health care. It was a medical doctor of good heart and conscience who went on Facebook not too long ago to lament that JNF was a disaster, that too many persons were going into the hospital relatively well as far as they can deduce, and they end up either dead or in a worse position. That doctor put on Facebook that, yes, she was a supporter of Labour, but she just couldn't imprison her conscience anymore. She was concerned first and foremost about her patients and keeping people alive. She had the courage of Esther, reflected in the book, chapter 4:16, with some faithful clauses. So I will go, it is written, in unto the king, which is not according to law. And if I perish, I perish. That was what Esther said. And it had such resonance and importance now for us, because it is time for us to challenge this tyrannical government that we have here. It is time for us to say we cannot let our country go to the dogs anymore. Yes, the government political hacks at the hospital, they are jostling for power, and no one is superior to the other in terms of the authority structure. So the PS, she can't command nobody to do anything, because all of them are party hacks. And so she has gone. And another political hack has come. And you see what recently went out? Nobody called me, oh, you got your problem at JNF, and I am the director. What you all call me for? It is a favor I'm doing to be here to answer you all. And if you all continue to bother me, I will just go away. So you all can't talk to me anymore. Is that the kind of response we tolerate in our country? And a critical service of the government, the ill discipline in the government is clear for all to see. The mistakes are there. I saw on social media, a man went into the hospital, broken parts. And when he left the hospital, the man got broken parts. The man had excruciating pains, which he said he endured. These are what our priorities should be. Sustaining life now. Not about a new hospital that may take 2-3 years to build by the time we will all be gone if we don't fix the problems that are there. If they were concerned, as he had pretended to be, the MRI would have already been there. It was to have come in 2 weeks. He had said that it was time to stop using the monkey MRI. But the man is so bad. He was the doctor that was sending the majority of patients over to the monkey farm to use the same MRI. And he promised 2 weeks that those MRI facilities, services would be available. We're still waiting. And what about the backlog of tests that can be performed at our main hospital? The government itself was forced into admission. They sent out recently a notice that a variety of tests from basic to more advanced couldn't be performed at our hospital. 3 hospitals already in the country: Mary Charles, Paxton's, and JNF. And in not one of them, they could have turned and said, we can't do it at JNF, but go to Mary Charles, go to Paxton's. And yet we are talking about a 4th hospital. Help it make sense to some of us who, like Jeffrey Hanley, is a slow learner. Help it make sense to us. Indeed, in another country, you would have had a demonstration on the street. You would have doctors and nurses up at JNF with their placards sending a message that life is precious and that not enough is being done. And that is why I made reference to the Esther moment. In all our lives, the moment of decision must come, where we will say, enough is enough. And on this matter, I will take a stand. To the nurses who are overburdened and disrespected at the hospital, this is your moment to act like Esther. Take a stand. Do not be overly worried about consequences. It will be a better result if you act with courage and on principle. Sometimes too many of our people want to sit down and be afraid. Fear doesn't come from God. We have to deal with our fear and take action to defend ourselves. And in all of history, someone rose up. Whether it was Rosa Parks. I'm not going to get up from this seat. I will sit so that others of my race will not be subordinated to other people of a different color, because the discrimination was based on race. Whether we be like Martin Luther King, at the end we can find a sweet melody, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Or whether we are like Mandela, thrown in prison to fight the discrimination. And at the end, like Mandela, we could sing Amanda. Amanda, that song of redemption. And I think our country is getting close to that moment when all of us will have to come to Bastille, lock down town, if you will, because we will have to send a message to all and sundry that our democracy means we have freedom. Freedom to speak, freedom to do, all, of course, within the confines of the law. And we will not let any political appointee, any political hack, any politician prevent us from standing up for our rights. Things are falling apart everywhere, and I don't want to lament some of the things that our great Chair Lady spoke about. How can you explain what is happening over, in the education sector? We know that Jeffrey Hanley, according to his own words, is not the smartest person. He said it himself. he takes a lot of time to get it right. And he boasts about it. But that is okay. How come? I mean, if you look at all the contrary things that went on in education for less than 2 years, school meals, food were not available in the first year. Never happened yet. Paint up the school meals facility 2 days before opening. How could you plan that? How could you allow the Sadler's High School to fall victim and had to close for days because of insensitivity in the leadership of the Ministry of Education? How could you reach to a situation where our students at Keon High School had been deprived for a long interval from in-classroom learning? How could you explain in the same ministry the primary school Joshua Obadiah Williams in Molyneux? The students for nigh 2 years haven't had a chance to sit in the facility in Molyneux. Fire came, did its damage to the block. We determined that it will be treated as an emergency project. And it would, during that period of time, been put under rapid response to get the block up and running. We had welcomed the opportunity to give them temporary space at the Explorers Club in Phillips. But the Explorers Club was never intended to be the environment in which that kind of formal education was being provided. So you have no classes separation. You have no room set aside for staff and all those layouts that leads to a quality education being provided. And nigh 2 years now. Every year Jeffrey speaks, at least for the last two in the budget, we will deal with it. Not 1 6-inch block or 4-inch is on the site. And the PTA has written to the Ministry of Education complaining about the inconvenience, not just to the children who have to attempt to be attentive when all around them are distraction. The classes is like this, you over here, you there, no partition. Consistent disruption of the education. And the Ministry of Education, last time I spoke with the PTA people, had not responded positively to their letter. The PTA went around. They had a petition signed by several persons in the community. And up to today, the Ministry of Education has refused to respond to the PTA in relation to that matter. It should never be that teaching and learning become a struggle in St. Kitts and Nevis because of the incompetence of the politicians at the top. I believe they are victimizing the people of Molyneux because they did not vote for them. And this victimization is a big thing in this country. Victimization is everywhere. On the job, people whose time has come to be promoted, they're looking over you. Persons who should be getting their increment can't get their increment processed. You go to the banks, they pick in and choose whose applications to be processed. You go to Skelec, they're picking and choosing whose light they will cut off. And the same pattern to the public sector, statutory corporations. If you want to talk about victimization, there are some departments come quickly to mind when you listen to the people. Custom Department, Sustainable Development, the Department of Agriculture, Human Resource, everywhere. Well, even in the Parliament, you could see The bias of the speaker is there for all to see and hear. Look at her body language. Look at her, everything about her. Something is not well. It means that every institution of our state is being overwhelmed in service to a party political agenda. And that cannot bring progress in our country. Look at what is happening. Hundreds of persons were fortunate to be allocated land under the Team Unity administration. They came to office, they said, put a hold, you can't pay, you can't do anything. Then almost every week, for 2 years, a gentleman told me it was like almost every Thursday or Wednesday they have him like a puppy show. Come back next week, come back next week. And one day he went and they asked him certain questions which were leading to his political affiliation. And he saw when the lady marked 2X on the application. They're doing a political cleansing. And we have to stop this madness in our country. It is illegal. It is a vindictive political act. Once you have your letter from Sustainable Development, you enter into a contract. They tell you to go, get the land surveyed, pay down this amount. You have made your payment. It is a binding contract. And they are frustrating you deliberately and willfully because they want to reassign your land to other persons who they favor. And I'm saying to the people, you have to find a lawyer willing to stand up for you. This is an act of vagabondry. This is not good. I mean, some persons went so far, had their land surveyed by the government chief land surveyor. And then after this government come in, and with their lies and dishonesty, well, you got this somebody land, somebody had it before you. No land in the country belongs to the government can be surveyed, one, without a letter from Sustainable Development, and secondly, without that surveyor having an audience with the government chief surveyor. They have all the developmental layout. When you get the letter, it doesn't tell you. It tells you a lot number. It doesn't give you length and width and all the land dimensions. You get that from Dwight Francis, the government land surveyor. So then your surveyor takes that information, go to the site, use the various dimensions, give you your surveying document, and you get the land size. And you do the arithmetic, and they tell you how much to pay. Well, let's say to err is human. So you may have 1 or 2 cases that sustainable miss, that they already allocated the land. Remember, it's not you allocating yourself, it's the writing to you. The chief surveyor whose duty is to take note of every land that has been, as it were, allocated, so that whenever you need information, he has an up-to-date record. So down there at the office, they made that error. Up there, they made the error. And nobody could help each other. And if the error is made by the government, they are duty-bound to correct it. And even if you can't get lot 29, we call you and say, well, we made a mistake. When we checked the books, it was already given to person A, but we have 31, 36, 44. Which of these would you like? That is how you do. Because you are the problem, not the person with the land. And you're therefore allowing and forcing persons to suffer. And this is not something that we should tolerate. It is our view that we have to take a stand. and the Esther moment where we will all have to risk it to rescue our democracy is soon at hand. One of our guiding principles as a party is that we come to appreciate that a successful country needs strong and successful national institutions. But what is happening now? Our national institutions are under attack. The integrity, for example, of the St. Kitts, Nevis and Anguilla National Bank, the largest bank in the OECS, is under attack from within the Jew administration, as that administration lies in bed with Philip Martinez to satisfy their political vendetta, whether it's against me or Douglas or whoever else. National Bank, if Martinez allegations were proven right, may well lose its strong correspondent banking relationships established under my administration, and it will become a regulatory challenge for the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. Well, what does correspondent banking allow you to do? To transfer money outside of the currency space. So imagine if, because of all that Martinez have said and put in court papers, all those banks say we're not dealing with National Bank. We lost some already. There was a time when we were so concerned about the loss of banking relationship, correspondent banking relationships. It was a big fight for us in the Caribbean. And here again, the man who is the public face of our CBI program is touting this nonsense internationally, and he has in his hand, almost like a captive, the Terence Drew administration. How can he still be the face of the public benefit option for our CBI program when our largest bank, our most important bank, the largest bank in the entire currency union, has been accused of illegal activities by the public benefactor? So as the saga of the discredited Philip Martinez and the Jew administration plays out, people are also asking about Garth Wilkins' offensive WhatsApp messages to Dwight Stefan as per the Martinez court case. And if what Martinez said, this is what the Attorney General of St. Kitts and Nevis sent to me, a hearsay document accusing a responsible member of our community of engaging in this kind of behavior, something is wrong with Garth. Garth Wilkins, if that is true, is unfit to hold the office of Attorney General, in my view. He is unfit to hold the office of Attorney General. It was a highly irresponsible act. What is this game they are playing? How all of them are like birds of a feather flocking together. Something is not adding up. How come it is the legal firm of which Garth Wilkins was a lawyer that is defending Philip Martinez? How come? How come the companies that Philip Martinez registered in St. Kitts and Nevis were in the main done by Mark Brantley legal office? Are you seeing a pattern? Are you seeing how they are coming together? Many people are seeing. But all people are always saying, when you dig one hole, you better dig two. When you dig one hole, you better dig two. And if a man named Martinez a tape people, bet your sweet life, Martinez a tape are you too. When you dig one hole, all people say, you better dig two. And that is what we know. But something is very fishy. It is a political vendetta. And the players now, you are coming to see. Lawyers, politicians, and as we listen, we will see the pattern of behavior that is unsavory and reflect that there are people in high office who are unsuited to hold those offices. They have no regard. Nothing is sacred. They have no regard for truth. Anything to destroy somebody they perceive as an opponent, they are willing to do. And it is we, the people, who will suffer. Our country is being made worse because the Jew administration has no moral minimum, no respect for the rule of law, and clearly intent on pursuing its own political interests at public expense. And it doesn't matter the cost to our country. But let's look at the moment at the man Martinez. The man was twice a prisoner. Twice a prisoner in France, in the USA. And that is the face of our CBI program. How could that be? The same man supposedly bought OTI Hotel to build a new hotel. We style it at MSR Hotel, and they're joining properties, Fisherman's Wharf, and all of us were to be a part. Go up there, see if any guests up there today. Go up there. The lights at OTI were cut by Skelec because he was in arrears. There are workers who have complained they couldn't get a red cent. So no hotel for Naiwa over a year, 2 years. No movies. He said he has relocated. And with all of that, the vagabonds in government, because that is what they are, call them by their right name, the vagabonds in the government are colluding with a man like that. When you see the file of court cases and Philip Martinez, I'm so sorry Mark had brought him to our country. I regret it. I regret it. And this is what the country has come to. A man who has shown no regard, no respect for our country, has found a comfort. I have to read a transcript of something he said, how often he talks with Garth Wilkin. That is there. He was at a function, and it is recorded. I want you to get the pattern of how wicked those people are in government. You, the ordinary people in our country, they don't have time for you. But when you see the transcript, what time Garth and him, and Garth and others linked to him are having conversation, you wonder what go on. Something is not right. How could this government be at his beck and call? And how could they call a cabinet meeting when one of the persons named by Martinez is Denzel Douglas, a foreign minister, the most senior minister of the government, the longest serving member of parliament? What is happening? Does this make sense? That such a man who can't even keep light on keep the light on at OTI. Lights cut off. Workers not paid. Could be the face of the newest program introduced by the Jew administration. Something is wrong. And look at his past. Look at his past that they must know. And that is the company they want to be in. I was amazed when I looked at a video that I had seen in January, and to hear Garth Wilkins said, I left from a cabinet meeting to come because I hear you are launching this project. A minister leaving a cabinet meeting to be at the beck and call of a person like that. Something is not right. And in the fullness of time, we will know how barley grow. Something not adding up. Something is not adding up because we are seeing a self-destruction of our country's reputation, of our CBI, of our system of cabinet that is unfolding before our eyes. So things will get from bad to worse. I had never envisaged that there will come a time when, for example, the Development Bank will say it cannot give students any loans. One of the critical reasons for the establishment of the Development Bank was to ensure poor people, children, poor people who ain't born with a golden spoon in the mouth like like Garth Wilkins. And yes, like many of us, he was born the same way, but that's for another occasion. But that bank was to ensure those who were disenfranchised, who had no economic standing, who had nobody to stand up for you, as we say, you're going for a loan, you need somebody to stand up for you. For you have no collateral, no title to show, no bank account savings, no shares in Horsford or TDC or any other company. And the banks want their collateral. Development Bank was an alternative for that. It was a policy instrument for empowerment, for poor people to get their children out to study without going to Royal because it would have been a no, without going to Barclays because it would have been a no. That was what Development Bank was about. Development Bank was about providing assistance to farmers and fishers who, like the student wanting a loan from a poor family, had no collateral. But in service of a policy agenda, not profiteering motive, you go to the Development Bank and you get a loan. The other day we hear July saying, Development Bank can't pay students. But this is the same July who in the budget and thereafter told us, I turn the bank around. Well, where did he turn it from? From Central Street to Church Street? So now it gone back, he make another turn. July, stop tell lies. Stop tell lies. Part of it he doesn't understand. He's like a man reading a script. So he work well with Martinez and movies. They give you a script, you learn your script. They tell you smile, you smile. You don't even know what the rest of the movie is because you're out here doing your part. And you never see the fullness of the movie till after. Jew is like that. He doesn't understand. There is a passage in the Bible when you went to church, and Shaquille, you went to church. And some of us went more often. Chapter what? You said, I didn't even tell her what I want to say. So that is good. But there's a passage of the Bible, and the essence of it is, do you understand what you read? The
Ethiopian eunuch and Philip.
Ethiopian eunuch and Philip. God bless you to pray. Pastor Asburn, you know that too. Do you understand what you read? How can I? What's the response? How can I unless somebody guide me? Who is guiding Dr. Jew? So the nonsense and the political hogwash, call them by their real names, that he speaks every day, he will become silent about it. The venom and anger. How can you unite people when you are an agent of bitterness and vendetta in the country? No wonder we are where we are at. Nothing new. It is a bitter July labor. That is what is happening. How can I? Because you turn around the bank, but the same bank now you come to tell us can't do the basic job of providing the students with their loans. Things are falling apart, and this country doesn't have a leadership in place to deal with the challenges. Everything is about politics. The PAP, which we introduced in 2018, made available to every deserving citizen, set a clear criterion, income of less than 3,000. Once you satisfy that per household, it didn't matter whether you're PAM, you're Labour, you're UPP, or you're not PP at all. That is how we did it. That was how we were doing it. So you found beneficiaries in St. Paul's. You found them in Sandy Point, in Old Road, in Connery, all over. Thousands of them. But now they have come on. The promised market will be 1,500. This man could lie. Lie? That need a calypso? $1,500 per month. And he now have reduced it to as low as $200. He has thrown thousands, even the elderly. I have a friend in Sandy Point. Her mother is 84 years. They throw off the pap. No conscience, denying her $500 to eke out a living. But they can get 36%. He can go home with over $25,000 per month and has no expenses, live in a house paid for by the government with an imputed value of some $25,000 and still taking housing allowance. And the house is being upkept by the government. And draw the parallel. They said that since the Governor General is living at government house, that she shouldn't get any housing allowance. What happens when the Prime Minister goes to live in a house fully being taken care of the government? The same principle. But selfishness and greed. Denying people 500. Go in a house paid for by the very taxpayers with an imputed value of $20,000 to $25,000. Twice they have changed furniture, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars for you. Public expense. Public expense. But the 84-year-old or the double amputee from Nevis, they can't get $500. Something is wrong. And so they are dismantling everything. Dismantling peace. He says it's a criminal enterprise. That worthless vagabond. That is what he is. Dishonest to the core. can't help himself. How could any responsible person say that? Are you saying to me that a program of which the Commissioner of Police, our chief law enforcement officer, is in charge of, is a national security program? It's a program engaging the vulnerable, some of them involved in crime, some of them being lured into the companionship of it. And you say it's a criminal enterprise. How dare you, as a responsible leader, say that? It's Pastor Maynard in Nevis, one of the most, well, how should I say, spiritual of persons, respectable persons up there. Is he part of a criminal enterprise? It's Pastor Connor at the Baptist Church. Was he part of the criminal enterprise? These were some of the people who were leading it. Was our Assistant Commissioner of Police, Adolph Adams, part of a criminal enterprise? What does he mean? Was MacArthur Brown, Assistant Commissioner of Police, part of a criminal enterprise? Or they were there with the intent of seeing a reduction in crime in our country? Was the guidance counselor, a young lady, Miss Mars, part of a criminal enterprise when she left the safety of her home and said, I am willing to come and provide support for these vulnerable people? Because at the end of the day, they are somebody's loving son, somebody's loving brother, somebody's protector. Somebody will carry the pain of their demise forever in their heart. I learned that from a mother who lost a son. And one Juve morning, she phoned me to say, Dr. Harris, whatever you are doing with this peace program, don't let them stop you. She said, I lost a son. And every day, at the hour she had learned of the death of her son, all the memories are relived. And she did not wish for that to be relived or to become the experience of another mother. I wish that July had the common sense, the empathy, the compassion of a human being to be able to relate to that situation and avoid chatting with such vulgar abandon. But again, he's a man with bitterness. And so they don't want peace, a good creation. All you need to do is reform it. I don't mind what name they call it. It is our gift to the country. It is part of our legacy and part of our successful crime-fighting initiative that brought murders down. And today, to our sadness and chagrin, St. Kitts and Nevis is the #1 murder capital in the world. Worse than Jamaica, worse than Trinidad. That is where we are at. And they say they call a program Elevate. Well, crimes and murders are being elevated. I wonder if they're happy now. Because his family advisor said to us that he could live with 12 murders a year. I never hear such foolishness. Foolishness from a man who we are told is being paid $15,000 per month. 15. The 20,000 I've heard is for the lady they brought in from Jamaica. She hardly here. She, I am told, and it seemed the blind genius heard too. She, I am told, is being paid $20,000. You see what they wouldn't do for locals? They have a weakness. They have a self-esteem problem. So they buckle in front of certain people. How could you justify that? And murders are out of control in our country, and they have no answer. And the minister of crime is only there. He's a minister for crime. He's only there talking from a script. And how could it be that in our country, this sort of prevalence of murders are taking place? And you hardly ever hear the minister for crime and the prime minister make a national address on crime. Even if it's in the heart of his constituency, somebody has to call him. Make a brave face to say something. It's not coming from a genuine place of love. And the people of number 8 should take and pay close attention to that behavior. Finally, in terms of what I call the national institutions, I wanted to spend a little time reading some sections of the IMF report, which Wendy went to. And I don't wonder why, if Juhed is not good, I ask myself those questions like so many people. Why is our Prime Minister behaving so strange? Every day he go back to some old washed-out story of no value. The Development Bank, oh, well, me owe money too. And if we take account, almost everyone in here owes some money. And it's because life's so hard we can't pay. But what do you expect? A bank? National Bank owes billions of dollars if you look at their liabilities. And it is the largest bank in terms of assets and loans. So oil is not the problem. It's not being able to pay for them that is a problem. Growing up in a partner hand, that's not the problem. But when you don't get your hand, and somebody else's turn comes, and they can't get the hand because you pull out, or you take the money to parent, that's going to become a big problem. For some of those other people in a partner hand, they're not easy, and they're not taking it so. So everybody owes. The government itself owes over $1 billion. So how are you talking about that? You go to the Director of Audit report, it tells you the Nevis Island government owe over $500 million. So what is this issue about that? NEVLEC owes. The National Housing Corporation owes. NHC owes. Hundreds of millions of dollars. Why the selection of the Development Bank? As if that are your road march. It's not a sweet road march, no. It has become stale and without sting and focus. Because if you have evidence, take the evidence. Take the evidence. But when we listen to the IMF report, we understand things bad. The IMF says that our social security is in trouble. And I just want to read. And he had turned it around. You heard him in the parliament? We had turned it around. Turn what around? We went through a period of COVID. We had thousands of people on Nevis and on St. Kitts who were not working. Clearly, the contribution income had fallen naturally. So by 2022, people gone back out to work. The contribution income, therefore, would rise. Nothing to do with July. Nothing to do. But in 2024, the IMF says there is an urgent need for parametric reform of the Social Security Fund. That's a big word. All they are saying, things bad. And they tell you what is the solution. He says the Social Security Fund is expected to begin running deficits this year. But he turned it around. That's what he told us. But here, what the IMF is telling us, it will begin to run deficits, losses, in simple terms, this year. And it will deplete its reserve. If you live as long as 2040, the money will be there. Not me say so. It is a paper that I am reading from. And it tells you what this government should do. The authorities should implement some combination of increasing contributions, meaning take more out of your money. Maybe from 5, they may double it. So they're going to kill you with poverty. He said that you must increase the retirement age, which means go from 62 to maybe 70. So those of you who are waiting to get 62 very quickly, get a lump sum. If July takes this advice, you're going to have to wait longer. You see? And it says that the government must look at their pension system, because the government has a pension plan, for public sector workers over time, unified it with the Social Security Fund while respecting acquired rights of current participants. Which means over time, all you're going to get is your Social Security. You understand? All you will get is that. At least they will ensure that when they add what government is giving you, as they do when you are sick, you get 65, and they have the rule that you shouldn't get more than what you would work for. So if you get money from the employer, then they will make the necessary adjustment. These are going to be hard to sell. Hard to sell. They brought in a man called Mr. Osborne, not Ambassador Osborne. And the man's job is to go around, talk to some people, and see if it convinces us that they have to move on these. That the Social Security which you like turn around has turned back away from him. In other words, this is what it is. They are predicting that for this year, they expect that we will begin running at deficits, income versus expenditure, basically, and that you have to begin to do what they call this big word, parametric reform. Sometimes they give big word when they want to tell you, going to harm you. So when the word too big is like, you don't pay much attention. It's gone over your head. This is what this means. When you go through the examples, extending the pension time, and all of these things, how come? This is a serious matter, you know. This is about livelihood. This is about your future plans. And the Prime Minister, who is the Minister of Finance, is not concerned about this. He come to tell you stupidness about Development Bank, foolishness. And then another big news. It's good when you could read these things, see? Because you learn more than what they are telling us. Section 13 speak about the trouble that we need a more ambitious fiscal path to achieve a balanced budget. And it says in one part, CBI dividends would be discontinued. Understand? I don't know if they done promise the IMF that they're going to stop this CBI dividend that he made such a song and dance about. It is written here for all to see that it would be discontinued. And he says that the government is phasing out the electricity subsidy already assumed in the baseline. What's your electricity bill? If your bill look high suddenly, The government, according to this report, has begun to charge you more. The subsidies being removed. Your bills will get higher. And this government of liars and vagabonds have not come to tell us what the IMF is now telling us in the report of May. It is time for us to get the Esther moment. It is time for us to walk the streets. It is time for us to ensure that this government never gets back there. Must never get back there. So Social Security in trouble. The CBI dividend, they say, I don't know if they're going to pay it next month. I saw one of my good fans, a fellow named Weeks here. He had up the campaign with Dr. Jussein that he will pay it, I think it's June and December. June and December. Well, June comes soon. You all will know. But how could the IMF explicitly make this at Section 13? And our government that likes to talk about transparency and good governance hasn't yet had a conversation with us about it. It told us too that things not so good at National Bank. So apart from the blows that Philip Martinez is giving it, and the heightened environment in which it must operate, it said National Bank has a lot of bad loans. Well, how come Dr. Juna talking about that? When National's loan portfolio would be several billions. And he hasn't come to talk to us about that. The IMF is telling us that National Bank is a systemic bank, meaning it's too large to allow to go through that. And the government has to do some things. He said what he called the government has legacy loans, which mean they're there for a long while. Like the loan the government has made, the bank has made to Christoph Harbour. Like the loan the SIDF gave to Christoph Harbour, $43 million of your money, and you couldn't get $50. You can't get $1,000 to pay for your electricity. But under a Labour government, these foreign institutions come and they get money easy, just so. National Bank had Kitishon Hill. Then the big Hefe was a man from Trinidad, Val Campadu. Millions of dollars. And that same entity chalk up a liability and indebtedness to the bank. I'm sure that they're probably now closer to 50 million than one. How come he's not saying anything about these legacy loans that have created a challenge for the bank? And the bank is not now fulfilling a lot of the regulatory requirements, according to this report. And they are documented what must be done in relation to that. So if Social Security is being challenged, that's the largest institution in the country. In fact, much of the monies that National Bank has, which is lending selectively, is coming from Social Security. Because that's what bank does. Banks do. They take our deposit. They lend it out to other people at a higher rate of interest. And they make a profit on it. That is what National is doing. National has a monopoly on Social Security's money. And in that I have a problem with it, because National is a local bank. Understand? No other bank has that advantage. And yet, the IMF is signaling that tough times are ahead. That the banking business is not going in the right direction, and there is a need for some quick remedial action. So, if we had doubt about the reasons for gloom, it's the absence of a knowledgeable and experienced leadership to deal with the challenges which we face as a people and country is an absence of experienced leadership to tackle the challenges which we face. They came to government with no knowledge of it, no knowledge of how it works, and they are very slow to learn. And that is why we are like an merry-go-round, round and round the trim-trim-bam. That is why Dr. Drew's government is like a dolly house government in that rail. Look across the world and tell me, do you see any other government behaving that way? 5 ministers, half of your cabinet, gone to Antigua. Something to do with SIDS. Even Antigua, the host country, wouldn't have that number or that ratio of its cabinet there. It doesn't make sense for what? For joyride. When they should be here dealing with the troubles in our country. Electricity gone. The country in darkness. Water gone. No money storing in the country. Come home. Come home to address the problems that are here. Come home, stop wasting our money, paying yourself per diem and doing no work. Come home, see the suffering in the town. Come home, see the bloodshed that is on account of your failure of leadership. Come home, say sympathy to the 50-plus parents who have lost their children because of the abject failure of Dr. Drew to understand that the country needs an urgent crime-fighting plan to be implemented. Come home, not at Beacon Heights. Drive up to Monkey Hill, Stapleton, Keyon, and Newtown. Talk with the real people. Talk with them. And you feel their pain and your failure. It is time for us to have a serious moment. It is time for us to be ready to march 7 times. How many times it takes for Pharaoh to let the people go. We must be prepared. And that is my invitation to you. That is why I made reference to the book of Esther. Pastor Osborne, help me, you're a pastor. I think it's 4 and 16. Where they talk about in the end, those famous words. Sandra, your face showing up, you know the answer. If I perish, I perish. But I'm going to see the king. It is not written in law. But the law must have real meaning for real people. That is what Esther determined. So don't matter that the law says you can't disturb the king. I must go because my people need to be saved. And if in the end the king followed the dead law and he beheads me, so be it. If I perish, I perish. I think we in St. Kitts and Nevis have reached that moment. We have to take a stand against the high level of corruption and vagabondry in the government. We must take a stand against it. And don't look back. It's a forward march to our freedom and a better day. May God bless our country and people.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harris, for that comprehensive and heartfelt presentation on the dire straits in which we as the people of St. Kitts and Nevis unfortunately find ourselves. Now, as usual, we would give an opportunity to the media, both here and those who are following online, to ask their questions. We have a number of questions that have come in. Some of them are questions whose answers I think may have been hidden or explicit rather in the presentation by Dr. Harris. So when we come to them, we will just make a determination if it bears repeating because he would have spent quite a bit of time on them. But let me first give an opportunity to the local media houses who are present here with us to state your questions. You can proceed to the floor mic, state the name of your media house, your name, and your question. Thank you.
Good evening, all. Devon Cornelius, ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation. Just a few questions to Dr. Harris. He mentioned in his opening remarks the PLP convention on June 13th and 15th. What could the public expect to come from the convention, and what would make it different from any other conventions that have been held? The second question has to do with, well, it's a two-part question. It has to do with the lawsuit he made mention of by MSR Media. So that lawsuit alleges that there was underselling of St. Kitts and Nevis passports between 2021 and 2022 when Dr. Harris was the Prime Minister. Is that so? And the second part of the question is, the lawsuit also seeks an order of mandamus, basically a statutory order requiring the Prime Minister to revoke all citizenships granted to applicants under the Galaxy Jail who paid less than the legal price. This is according to the lawsuit. Do you, Dr. Harris, support this order? And the last question for me is, with regards to general elections, how ready is the People's Labour Party to contest general election if one is to be called in less than 3 months? Thank you.
Good evening, Glenn Bart, SK News 9. To continue along the lines with the MSR Media matter. Now, Dr. Harris, you were Prime Minister when you invited Philip Martinez and MSR Media over to St. Kitts. I recall I was at a sort of welcome cocktail reception over at Christopher Harbour when that happened. And there was quite a bit of smiles, handshaking, and that kind of thing. So my question is, why did you invite him to St. Kitts, and for what purpose? And secondly, could you clarify what happened between that point in time when everything seemed positive and the falling out that has taken place? Obviously, something has happened. What really was the situation? I'll come back with another matter.
Well, let me, Madam Chair, quickly address that. But it is based on an untruth, so I don't want it to hold. I never invited MSR Media to come to St. Kitts. Mark Brantley brought MSR Media to our country. MSR Media started making movies, we are told, in Nevis. MSR Media indicated that it needed some new spots, basically to make movies, that there was a limit in terms of availability of spots, sites, because you don't want in every movie you're showing the same scene. And it determined that it was in its interest to come to the sister island. MSR Media extended an invitation to me to come and to see its work. In fact, their people were in fact going to shoot some scenes, I think it was South Plage? Yes. Somewhere over there, and they wanted us to come. So the invitation came from them. Mark Brantley was then a member of the cabinet. It was Mark Brantley who brought him to the country, who said that this thing was happening and it was a positive. And by and large, because we had relied, and in hindsight, it was bad to have relied on Mark judgment, because you now see what was the nature of the man that was invited to come and to participate in our space. And so that is really what has happened. I never invited him. Mark invited him, encouraged him. Mark provided him $150,000 US to assist in the shooting of movies. The details of that, I think you asked him at one of the press conference he had, what they were getting, what was the deal. If not you, some other reporter, but it's on tape, and he admitted that there was 150,000 US, and I think in another interview somewhere else, he said that they had expended about $1 million US so far in relation to that. So the invitation, as you put it, did not come from me. I was just doing the courtesy. A church invite you to go to the church, but of course he's far away from church now. This is movie business. So, but just by way of explanation, somebody invite the Prime Minister, the African liberation people, you do them the courtesy of going. And I really thought that he had been properly vetted to have come to Nevis, to have been getting those benefits there, and he wanted to come to St. Kitts, and would it have been a good thing for them to come? Sure, because he could have gone St. Martin, gone other places to shoot the movie. So I didn't have a problem. I went there, and it was really, as you said, you were there. I didn't have a secret meeting with him. He has nothing signed by me in relation to any arrangement. Nothing signed by me. You understand? So it was always him dealing with the relevant people in the government. But what we now know of him, we did not know. That is what has changed. And what he is attempting to do, because up to yet, according to him, he can't get nothing sell. He wants to blame everybody in St. Kitts. But would you go and buy from him now that you know who he is? Would you do it? So I am not surprised that he is having difficulties. But he mustn't put them on me. I am not in anything with him. You understand? Never was and never will be. Okay. Well, I thought I should do so.
Just a follow-up on one of the questions asked by Devon in relation to the underselling of the citizenship applications. Mm-hmm. Now, apparently, and this thing has been going on for a very long time, mm-hmm. because I recall hearing about underselling taking place by agents all over the world who were working on behalf of the CBI program. Apparently, there was some kind of loophole in the law. My question is, though, having known that this was taking place, and it doesn't necessarily mean it started under your administration, because I believe it started before, but having known that this has been taking place and could be detrimental to the CBI program, why didn't you step in and create the laws, create the regulations that would have put an end to that kind of activity, bearing in mind that along the route, it will have detrimental effects on the program?
Well,
John.
I think the question that you pose, again, the assumption that is made is that there was underselling and there is evidence of it. I have no such evidence. I am not engaged in selling. I am not engaged in selling. No. No, you're putting it to me. You said that it was taking place. I am not aware of that. Well, I am not aware of discount. If you know, then you don't need to ask me. I am saying I don't know about that.
Dr.
You
Harris,
hear a lot of things.
perhaps it would be best for the benefit of the media, Mr. Batt, and the other persons present here, if we, in a nutshell, indicate to them what happens in terms of government fees, etc., when somebody invests in a program or project in this country that leads to their eligibility for citizenship. Because I think that is where some of this confusion is coming from.
Yeah. Well, what I would say, that there is a process. The process is handled by the CIU unit. Okay? All matters in relation to the CBI and the relevant technical parties. I am not involved in the selling. I do no monitoring of selling in that respect. I would know that we have such and such a revenue coming from such and such. I am not out there negotiating price. The prices are set, and all the documents that I've seen come reflecting that price. Come reflecting that price. So I am not privy to any arrangement other than what I see. And the way the system is set up, there are entities whose responsibility it is that should make a determination that the arithmetic with everything is correct. Those entities would have done their work, and I believe they would have done according to the best of their knowledge. I have no evidence in relation to underselling. I have none. I have not been a part of any underselling. And I am not getting into some hearsay that somebody did say. Those who know must speak for what they know. I can't speak to that. What I do know, we had a very strong program, a program that was well respected, a program that was a platinum, a program that brought in hundreds of millions of dollars to our country under my leadership, and allow us to fulfill the requirements of a functioning state, satisfy health care, satisfy the needs of our farmers. That was what I was dealing with, policies. All the other things that may there, they are different arms of the government that would relate to them. It's certainly not a matter I would engage in. So this matter of underselling, and you said from long time, and then Devon, what's his name, Devon?
Cornelius, yes.
Yes, with a particular date. They must speak to those who are saying this. They must bring the evidence to you, because it seems they know. Maybe something is in a WhatsApp that was sent to them. Martin has said he got a WhatsApp that God sent to somebody. I don't know. I don't know. Then the issue of this lawsuit, I'm not getting into that. Why would I? It has nothing to do with me. Let those who have something to do with this, the reporter of this must ask July. Because tomorrow, as is the custom, because we are having this press conference, he has one tomorrow. You understand? To get a script, how to respond. So this is a question for the government. This is not directed, I am a citizen, an ordinary citizen. This law of mandamus or mandamus, whatever you call it, I don't have a thing to do with it. And I will just not get myself drawn into it.
Okay.
As to the PLP convention, it will be refreshing. When you look at what happened, Labour had a convention the other day. It was as if it was a wake. There was nothing comforting. And we are confident about our prospects at a general election. If you look at the attendance here today, you know that the vibes are with PLP. PLP has the support. The country has come to appreciate that it has made a major mistake in putting July in office. And he is not what he pretended to be. and it is time for a change to happen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harris, for your answer. Now, before I go any further, there was a question that Mr. Batt asked me on the 5th of March relative to the EU and whether or not there were provisions in the Economic Partnership Agreement documentation that suggested whether or not the member states of the ACP, the African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries, were required to agree to certain new norms as it related to gay rights and reproductive health issues like access to abortions, etc. And at that time, I told you, to the best of my knowledge, I did not have any information indicating that, because I would have read those documents during the time when I was functioning as the minister responsible for trade. I would have gone the step further and communicated with the Ministry of Trade, and they too are not aware of any such considerations. Having said that, in my own research, what I am aware of is the African Council of Churches would have written objections to the EU at their Belgium office, expressing concern about the insertion of language that suggested matters of gay rights into implied language, because when you look at what is written, it said they are obliged, okay? Not that you have to. But I know that in the case of the African Union, they claim that when these negotiations were being done, they were not consulted, and the lower level type of so-called representation that would have been present at the EU when these were being done, they were more or less accusing the EU of using their technicians by sleight of hand to insert into the documentation language that could be interpreted over the long term by agencies such as the UN that would put forward the gay rights agenda. But for all intents and purposes, it is not explicitly stated in the document. Now, there is a question that I would have received. Apparently, the individual claimed that they would have asked a question at the last press conference. I did not get that question. And for the record, I am not the one clearing the inbox when the messages come in. It would be our team behind the scenes that would be doing that. But nevertheless, I have the question here. Dr. Harris, I have been trying to get this question to you for a long time now, but I'm trying another avenue and hope to get it this time around. My question is, there are a number of strip clubs springing up in St. Kitts. Are strip clubs a legal business operation in the Federation? Most of these strip clubs are serviced by Jamaicans. Do they get a work permit to perform in their nude bodies? I am concerned for this because of what CARICOM is offering these smaller islands. When you return to lead this country, what will be your government's policy towards these strip clubs? And the question goes on to add, my goodness, Robert Batcher must be turning in his grave to know what is going on in this land. Is that a question you're prepared to answer?
Yes, but you have been with me in cabinet for 7.5 years. I will ask you to answer for me.
Okay, what I will say in terms of, before I answer the question, is to understand what I interpret to be the crux of what the person is asking. The person is making the point, as far as I could see, that we have entered into negotiations and agreements, treaties, etc. with CARICOM, the most notable one being the CARICOM Single Market and Economy. Of course, that replaced the original Treaty of Chaguaramas. And in that treaty, there are certain rights that are enshrined in terms of the right to move labor and capital and investments across the member states. And in so doing, when these investments and labor movements take place, there should be equity and there should be reciprocity. A big word to say, well, what you do in St. Kitts for a Trinidadian worker, if a Kittitian or Division worker goes to Trinidad, they have to do the same. Okay, so equal treatment. And I do recognize that there were certain classes of individuals, starting out with university graduates and professionals. Then the discussion went on to include agricultural workers. I think up until the death of the His Excellency, former Premier Vance Amry, when he represented us at CARICOM, there were considerations ongoing in 2022 as to whether or not that definition should be expanded to include people in the services sectors, especially security guards. So it's against this backdrop that I think this question came. Now, as far as I am aware, neither the Companies Act of 1996 nor the Small Business Development Act of 2009 has made any provisions for any adult entertainment, and I'm saying the word euphemistically. In other words, no houses of prostitution, no strip clubs. That's what they mean by adult entertainment. There are no such provisions in either of those pieces of legislation that says that people are allowed to engage in that type of business activity. Now, in my research, I have discovered that there was one such strip club in Sandy Point that had a very short life because the people of Sandy Point were not tolerating it, and that closed very shortly. And then, however, there is a strip club, at least one, I am told, based on commercials I'm seeing on my WhatsApp messages from professional advertisers like Bucky Got It, who get paid to do that, where it appears that one such establishment operates out of the Omax Gardner building on 4th Street. And even the ads that you see have these women scantily dressed, G-strings like floss and stuff like that. But I think based on the photos that you're seeing, they do not appear to be any of our local women. Now, be that as it may, our issue would be, how are these women coming in here? When they approach the immigration officials at the airport, what do they say they come into the country to do? Because they are allowed to come in, yes, based on the free movement. But then at the same time, the establishments where they might be working, such as this bar on 4th Street, is the bar licensed to do that, or is the bar licensed as a bar? And then these are the extra eye candy that you offer the patrons when they get there. It brings me to another point, and it has to do with objectifying women. Because if any woman is that desperate that she feels that she cannot earn a living other than selling her body through prostitution or enticing men and giving them delusions of grandeur in terms of what is possible by sitting on their lap and God knows what else they do, because I don't visit those places, then it begs the question, is it that you figure as a woman that you are out of options in terms of earning a living without having to belittle yourself and have men ogle you and stick $5 bills in your waist for your underwear and that type of stuff? It is the wrong message that we are sending. Now, there are two other pieces of legislation I started looking at. One is the Sexual Offences Act, which is based on the old British Sexual Offences Act that we would have inherited by the time we became an independent country, and that would have been amended over time, I believe. And the other one, the Offences Against the Person, which I'm not finished with. But none of those two pieces of legislation speak to that as well. So to carry it further in an attempt to give the proper answer, I also attempted to reach out to Mr. Edward Gift, the Controller of Inland Revenue. I did not get him. I sent him a text message, and up until I came to the podium, he may not have seen the text yet based on the two ticks not changing color. But I have essentially asked him the question as to what is going on. How are these places registered? Is it legal? Is it something that we should be looking at? Because I don't think that that is what we really want the CARICOM single market and economy to be about. Okay, we want people who are productive persons. You don't have to be all university graduates, but you must come to add value to the jurisdiction through the enrichment of jobs that you might be eligible for and opportunities that are created for which our own local citizens may not be in a position to fill. So that would be my response to that, Dr. Harris. Now, if I could get to some of the other questions that would have come in via the email address, plpcommunications@outlook.com. There was a question, the first question here, basically says that last week some 5 ministers were off island, including the Prime Minister in Canada, Jeffrey Hanley, the Attorney General Wilkin in Taiwan, Minister Samuel Duggins in Bermuda. This week, 4 ministers are in Antigua at one conference, namely PMJU Senior Minister Douglas, Minister Clark, and Minister Duggins. I think that is the Sustainable Development Program that they were attending. What are you or your party's views or position on this unprecedented overseas travel engagements by the ministers? Was it necessary for all 4 of them to be there? By comparison, Grenada sent a 5-person delegation that included just 2 ministers, including their prime minister. Now, I think to a certain extent you may have touched on the answer to that, so I don't know if you wanted to go over that point any further.
Just quickly to say it's unnecessary, and you have read an example. Grenada has gone 2 ministers, of which 1 is the Prime Minister. Why does St. Kitts, the smallest country, see a need to have 4 ministers? There are 6 elected persons, 4 ministers. It's unnecessary. Because there's so much problems here, so many problems. Electricity, water, cost of living, the state of the hospital. Why are they tied up there, wasting time? It's a waste of taxpayers' money, really. I think the delegation must reflect the need and the benefits that are to come.
There are some questions that came in at MSR Media, which
You have.
already indicated, but there are some questions that would have come in about MSR Media, the reduction and adulteration of the PAP program, some of which you've answered already. Then there is a question about Skelec load shedding and water outages that now appear to be daily occurrences. And the power utility is obviously overwhelmed, and so is the water department. Do you have any comments on this, and can you give the nation an insight as to what was done under your administration to successfully manage or keep Skelec and water outages manageable and under control, and not out of control as far as the extended blackouts and outages being experienced now? What did your administration do that this administration is not doing?
Very quickly, I would say we had a competent administration that paid attention to what was necessary. And so I think under the watch, in particular, V.N. Patches-Libed, our First Minister of Public Infrastructure, we had a proper management system, a proper maintenance system. You can't wait until it goes out to address it. And that is why things were reduced to a minimum. And then we look towards the future. And towards the future, we look at renewable energy. And in that regard, we sign off on the solar farm project, which would have brought the largest solar farm in any parts of the globe, in these parts of the region, to St. Kitts and Nevis, providing a significant proportion of the base load power needed. So while we were keeping things going, we were looking at the sustainability factor, and we recognized that we had to go to renewable. And we had a contract signed on about, 2019, just before COVID or thereabout. Eventually, we had the readiness for engagement in 2022, a government change. The July government determined to put it on hold, and then they come back to it again, wasted 2 years. When we could have had an improvement in the electricity supply, they come back to the same project, and they say that it will start when? Maybe sometime this year, going into next year. So the country has lost that period of time. We'll end up paying more monies over the life of the project and no benefit. That's why we are now having this load shedding so regularly.
If I might add, based on the IMF report, one of the concerns that they had was the lack of haste in terms of conversion over to renewable energies as well. We would advise anyone who is interested to read the report for yourself. It's at imf.org. Alternatively, I do have it on my phone, so I can share it with, in particular, the members of the media who would want to quickly glance at it. But I now acknowledge the representative from Sugar City FM.
Yeah, good evening, Ralston Rankin from Sugar City FM. Dr. Harris, in your opening remarks, you speak on the dividend program, or the dividend, I should say, which the IMF stated that this present administration should pretty much finish with it. As a former minister for, what do you call it? Finance, thank you, finance. And also, you know, if, let's say you were, your party had given a promise of that, would you be able to sustain or pay the dividend, you know, if at this present time? Secondly, the surge in crime. If I'm not mistaken, I think under your administration there were reports of firearm seizures and ammunition. But at this present time, there haven't been any reports within the last close to 2 years or so regarding to that. Well, I know you're not in government, but maybe you might be able to give an indication as to why you think, you know, that might be the case. If there is something needs to be done with, in terms of the Coast Guard or customs, because that's pretty much where, you know, the reports used to come from. And on the Philip Martinez, because it seems to be a very, you know, hot one. My colleagues, they spoke on it as well. All right, in light of the recent suit filed by MSR Media against the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, also which includes National Bank, which, you know, Mr. Martinez is the benefactor. Do you think that, you know, he should, based upon his action, should be revoked? And, you know, because, you know, I mean, something like that pretty much would bring the country to a devastating outcome or circumstances. Those are my questions for now.
Thank you.
Very quickly, I want to thank you for the questions you have asked. Very quickly, in terms of the last question which you put, the revocation, that is a matter for the July administration to deal with. They have created that problem. They made him the benefactor. He has not delivered on anything. And so we will see whether they put the interests of the country ahead of their own personal vendettas. So it's in the government arm, and I would want to leave it there. In terms of the report in the IMF that the CBI dividend that was introduced and then played with, because the last time it was paid in December, some workers did not get, which was unfortunate. Again, broken promises. To me, when as a government you make a promise, your word is your bond. And there will always be some people for whom that promise was a determinant for them. They considered it serious enough for them to give you a chance. If the government is going to not fulfill its promise, it should come to the people and say why. We shouldn't have to hear from the IMF that they have committed to end the program. It would tell us then that the program was ill-conceived, not well thought through, because not even 2 years, and with such a short period of time, they are telling you to end it, or you have told them you will end it. That, to me, is a serious matter. But the truth be told, times are so hard that any relief, any ease that our people can get, I will want them to have. This summer is going to be a hot summer of pressure. A hot summer of pressure. And if Dr. Drew has any conscience, he would really keep the promise. Having denied thousands of persons in December, when he determined that the government workers wouldn't benefit from the CBI dividend, he must not do it a second time. But then he doesn't take sensible advice. So I've given him a sensible advice. He may not want to follow it. But that again is a matter for him. People need relief. I recall that it was in June, I think 2022, that I announced some 16 measures to help our people deal with the spiraling cost of living. Remove taxes, defer the payment of electricity, which is now like a monster for so many people. They come with some big bills and they go to the department, and as if these people are unconscionable, like the minister. I mean, people run up thousands of dollars, you're telling them you have to pay half. Where are they going to get it? You have to be practical in what you're saying to people. Say to them, try and pay your monthly, whatever you use now on, try and use what you can pay for. And we will have to deal with your arrears at some period in time. That would be reasonable for the ordinary people. That would be reasonable. Pay as you go ahead now and you know what to do. Don't expect people to come up with $10,000 for some people ain't pay for a long while. I mean, you wonder why so long. But if they couldn't pay for 20 months and 12 months, how you expect them going to come to half? And these are people working on minimum wage. So we need practical responses to that particular matter. The issue, well, the revocation, as I said, that's a government matter, and I am all in favor of the people getting the dividend. It's their monies. Their monies. It's not Dr. Drew's money. It's not something coming from his foundation. It's coming from a program for which I work very hard to get where it is. Where it is now one of the most significant revenue earners for the country. Let the people get some of it because they are wasting it doing so many things. So many things they are wasting it on. I intended that it benefit the people. And as to our own experience, look at PAP. We carried PAP from 2018 every year, even during COVID. We paid PAP. In fact, we increased the list because we know more persons during PAP because businesses closed down, the hotels closed down, there was increased joblessness. More persons then were getting towards the poverty line. More persons needed a helping hand, and we sustained PAP. Whatever we do comes from our heart, a deep belief in it, and what we start, we continue down to the very end. The roofing program for the first time, over 4,000 or 5,000 persons got assistance with their roof. So again, when you compare us as a government, we knew how to run things, and we did it well.
Thank you for your answer, Dr. Harris. There are a number of similar questions that came in, but I do recall that DJ Rankin, that there's part of his question that wasn't answered, and I think it has to do with the surge in crime and the seizure of ammunition, whether or not anything can be done differently in terms of bolstering the Customs and Coast Guard to be more vigilant. Yeah, that question.
Well, there will always be room for improvement, greater efficiency, greater vigilance. The issue of the Coast Guard fleet had been one that we had been actively engaged with the British and the Americans to see what assistance we could have, because again, illicit things are brought into the country. They are not made here, so it means it's either air or by sea. And so we wanted to strengthen those. The customs was at one point very active. And it's a long time we haven't heard that the custom has been able to seize any firearms. I don't know why not. But that is something that the powers of be may want to look into. We are not hearing of these things. So, and they know why they are not saying, why nothing is happening. But the entire national security, in my view, needs a revisit. From the head down to the least of the apostles need to be checked into. We don't know what is the strategy. What we are hearing from them amount to nonsense. When the National Security Advisor says, well, if you commit a crime, if you commit murder, go and borrow money. Well, who sensible banker gonna lend you money to go buy a ticket, to go away? Does it make sense? And when that person is operating at the highest level, he's a family member of the Minister of National Security, he has his ears. And that is the kind of advice we are getting. We know that our country is in trouble. And no wonder things are falling apart. You know, the advisory team is a very poor one. And the Prime Minister doesn't take good advice, so he chooses bad advisors. And so that's where we are at.
There's one final question before we wrap up, and this question came from someone online. Now, nearly 2 years into the Jew administration, the Premier Brantley-led NIA and the PM Jew-led federal government have gone silent on the issue of the so-called fair share for Nevis, which was so heavily campaigned on during the 2022 elections. Do you have any comment on that?
I think in that one I perhaps should be silent too, because the fact that people have observed that there is no more fair share, they wonder, what was that then? Why did that become such an issue? So the people now understand where the genuine leadership really was and is now. So I'm happy that that question has come, and I need not say much about it. The fact that people know there are no more fair share, you know. So shall it be.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this press conference. We thank you for joining us this afternoon into the evening, and we trust that we would wish to have the conversation going at the national level. We are open to dialogue, and we are open to looking at ways in which we can advance St. Kitts and Nevis so that it can once again be the preferred island state where people turn to live, to work, and to do business. Please get home safely to your homes and have a pleasant evening. Yes, again, next Wednesday to Sandy Point at the community center at Farms. So, yes, so thank you, and we look forward to you joining us. Good evening. Okay.